if we could start off by talking a little bit about what it's like going back and revisiting a movie that you made over a decade ago for this screening.
Well, I haven't gone back and looked at it yet. It's only being put on, so I can't really tell you until I see it.
Yeah, but what's it like going back and kind of revisiting what it was like for you then, and going back and trying to think what it was like to sit down and make this film?
Oh, look, it's... I mean, whenever you finish a film, you always think about all of the things you should have done and things you'd like to change and all of those sort of things. So there's all of those things that are always there. But, look, you just hope that people enjoy what you did at the time and that it's not too embarrassing for you 12 years later. Then...
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about Four of a Kind. Where did the idea first come about for you, and how did you go about actually getting this film made?
Okay. The film was not a film. The film was a play. Helen Collins is the writer, and she wrote a play called Disclosure. And she was a friend, and she showed me the play. And there were many things about the play that I really liked, and I was looking for a low budget feature script. And this was sort of four dialogues between four different women, part of it was very clever dialogue with it, and that was a big attraction to me. What we did was then adapt that. We lost one of those four pieces to tie up the other three to make in the film, and we put some visuals and things to it. But essentially, it still is, dialogues between four women, essentially.
Yeah.
In the cast, and we put some music in between, and we had, lots of flashbacks to what things that they were talking about. And because there's a lot of deception in the piece, it's about lies and deception. We decided to adopt a sort of thing where the flashbacks always told the truth. So while people were lying, what we see is the truth of what they're saying, but we gradually reveal more and more as it goes through.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I'm a huge fan of the indie film from the 1980s in America called Ice House, which was adapted from a screenplay, from a play. And I remember the director saying it was one of the hardest things that he had ever worked on, was turning this play into something that you could watch on screen. Did you find that very difficult to turn the play into something watchable on screen?
Well, look, we kept a lot of the format. So because it is these dialogues, we kept that format a lot more. So we didn't change it into an entire live action thing because it wasn't really possible to do that. It had always been about these dialogues. So we maintained a lot of that, the stage structure within it. So probably unlike him, we didn't make it as visual and as filmic in that sense as he probably did with his adaptation.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about your cast. You were able to put together a great cast. So tell us a little bit about how you went about doing that and what they were like to work with.
Well, there are four main characters, four main women, who are all middle-aged, strong women, basically, which was another thing that attracted me about it, being one of those at the time, and still, and not seeing a lot of women in films other than as mothers and support roles. I was attracted to having a film that did have sort of four strong characters who were playing different roles in their lives, both work-wise and relationship-wise. Laverne McDonnell was one of those leads. Laverne was a very close friend of mine, and she was also the co-producer on this film. So she came on early on, and we did the casting together. So she was always going to be one of those lead actors, and she assisted. We did casting together. We had many discussions about who the cast should be, and I think put together between us a good group of people for it.
Yeah.
So some of whom I knew and some of whom she knew. And I'm talking past tense because unfortunately Laverne McDonnell died of cancer some 7 years ago.
Yeah.
So it was really her main last big role.
Yeah. Does that make this screening more important for you in a way that it is a way that Laverne's legacy lives on a little bit with this screening?
Yeah, it always is. It's always difficult for me at times watching Vern on screen, and I subsequent to Four of a Kind, I made a documentary about Laverne after she died, which she did some of the filming of during her illness. But that's a different film.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's always a bit emotional watching Laverne on screen, which I haven't done for a little while.
Yeah. Now, being a film reviewer over the last 20 years, it has been so great to watch how the role of female characters in films have changed, especially over the last decade in particular. Did you feel at the time that this film was almost like a little bit of a game changer, having such 4 strong female lead characters during a time when some people would never have made a movie like that?
Well, it was certainly one of the things that attracted me to the script and hence the film. So yeah, it was one of the things that I was interested in, but I don't know that it was a game changer because it's such a small film. Nothing much changed as a result of this film. However, it was certainly one of those attractive things, and things have moved a bit since then, as you say.
Definitely.
Which is great, and there's a lot more younger female filmmakers, making with stronger female characters coming through. Although still, they're mainly young women. They're not middle-aged women.
Yeah. How do you think we go about changing that? Because I've seen some great films coming out of Britain, especially over the last few years, with actresses like Helen Mirren being given more of a centerpiece role rather than what they would have done in the older days when they would have cast her alongside Michael Caine or something like that. Do you think here in Australia we are kind of catching up to what other countries are doing at the moment?
Probably not. I mean, I think that the 2 big exceptions to this are always Helen Mirren and Meryl Streep. They sort of continue to do lots of wonderfully interesting roles that aren't just mothers. But I think we're still quite a long way behind in lots of seeing middle-aged women in many films on screen here.
Yep.
And in Hollywood on the whole, they still have to be stars to be on the screen in Hollywood, so they have to be of that category on the whole.
Definitely. Now, you're doing a Q&A as well after the screening. Tell us a little bit about what you're hoping that you might be able to achieve with the Q&A, and do you get nervous before doing something like a Q&A?
I always get nervous before doing any things like that because I'm not a performer myself, so yeah, it's always. But I'm also quite used to doing a certain amount of talking about the films. So look, I'm not trying to achieve anything. I'm just hoping that if people are interested, we can have a chat about the film.
Yeah.
So it's really just sort of seeing what people think about it and answering any questions.
Yeah. Fiona, your career after Four of a Kind, you have made more films after that. I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about Strange Tenants as well, which is a film that you made just last year. Tell us a little bit about the film and when people might be able to go and see it now that we're finally getting out of our lockdown.
Well, most of the films I've done, still the majority of the films I make are documentaries, although I'd love to make more dramas, but they're a bit more expensive and difficult to get funded. Strange Tenants is it's called Strange Tenants Scarred for Life. So Strange Tenants were a 1980s Melbourne ska band who were quite successful at the time, and they still play occasionally, sort of 30 years later. They're very much a sort of a band that have been close friends and almost family to each other over the years, and they were started by the Hearn brothers, Bruce and Ian Hearn, who are both musicians do other things as well, but both musicians. And so it was sort of just following their story and the band's story and life. It has screened at lots of festivals and things over the last year or two, and is just out on DVD now via the band's site, the Bandcamp site for the band, and is just going into educational distribution at the moment via Art Films, and I'll probably be putting it up on for streaming, etc. very shortly as well. So it's not, you're probably not going to see it at the cinema. It did have a screening actually also at the Thornbury Theatre just prior to lockdown, and was about to have another one when we went into lockdown at this time last year. But it's now gone through a lot of its sort of festival screenings, and so it's coming out more educationally.
Awesome. Well, we cannot wait to check that one out as well. For the listeners out there, that is Strange Tenants, Scarred for Life, and we'll let you know more information about that when it becomes available for streaming as well. But everybody, head along to check out Four of a Kind at the Thornbury Theatre on Tuesday night. I guess, Fiona, to wrap up, is there anything you'd like to say to our listeners before they make the journey out to see Four of a Kind?
Not really. I just hope people enjoy it, and I hope it's a very low budget film that was made a while ago, and I hope it's still got some interest for people.
Awesome. Well, Fiona, thank you so much for chatting to us today. It's been an absolute pleasure. I know a lot of our listeners are going to want to go and revisit this film again.
Thank you very much, David.
Not a problem. You have a great day.
Thanks.
Thank you. Bye.